So, Matt, I'm very excited to get into this. I have seen the phrase brand and performance come up multiple times today in the chat and in other sessions. So, people are obviously very keen to understand how the heck to balance these two seemingly very separate things. It does seem like there are a lot of brands out there who have this desire to do bigger, more campaign level thinking. But the reality is the day to day tends to be a lot of testing version after version, optimizing ad spend, what have you. So when you try to think bigger and you try to think of campaigns, it just feels kind of nebulous and hard to pin down. Probably even harder to sell into leadership when you've got revenue targets to hit and CPMs to worry about. But it seems like you and the HexClad team have really figured this out and you have seen a ton of success with the campaigns that you've been doing. But at the same time, you have not abandoned performance marketing. So I want to dig into how you have seen this marriage of those two ends of the spectrum and how people in the audience today can borrow some of that strategy, even if they don't have a Gordon Ramsay kind of budget on their
Yeah.
side. So quick note for the chat, like Evan said, we're going to have some room for a Q&A at the end. So drop all of those things, all of your questions for Matt in there, and we'll hit those at the end.
But
So
is the session
first,
being recorded? Yes?
oh, I don't know. Good
Yeah,
question. I don't know if
it's
they've
great.
answered
Good.
that
Yeah.
yet.
Excellent. Good. Just making sure. Fantastic.
So I want to start with just a very basic definition of campaign, because I think that word can mean so many different things to different people. Like for me, I come from a very traditional creative ad agency background, and that means one thing to me. But then for someone who is knee deep in Meta Ads Manager all day, that means something else to them. So for the purposes of this session, what should we think of as a campaign and campaign thinking?
Yeah, thank you for that setup, Ashley. I think that really kind of encapsulates like where we were at HexClad earlier this year. Where, if you've been here all day, you've heard from my colleague Connor Rolane. If you listen to the Marketing Operators podcast, you hear him talk about kind of how we're thinking about this kind of combination between brand and performance marketing and what happens as a brand gets bigger when you cross that nine figure number that we crossed several years back before I even joined HexClad 3 years ago. What sorts of things does the brand have to start doing? And I think for us, it's not sort of one or the other. I think when you originally wrote this question, it was like, why has HexClad moved from tactical D2C to campaign driven marketing? And really it was about bringing those two worlds together. So trying to take the best of like legacy brand building, brand moat building, thinking that, Ashley, in your agency background, this is the paradigm that you thought about how to think about brands. It was 13-week campaign cycles with our top of funnel, activities on TV and out of home, filtering down to social and performance driven direct response advertising. And I think we've had a very bottoms up approach in many ways where we've been very focused on top or bottom and middle of funnel channels like Meta and sort of how our brand shows up there. And then we started spending more on TV over the past couple of years. We brought on Gordon Ramsay in 2021, obviously. He does a lot for us, very high brand awareness figure. We're on all of his shows. But I think this year we started thinking about what does a campaign mean to a D2C brand in 2025? And for us, we tried to think about one, where we wanted to roll these things out and around what time periods. Is it around our offer periods? Is it around product launches? Is it around partnerships and brand moments? It has become all of those things. But two, what does that adaptation of the campaign look like? Do we have to have a TVC spot? Do we have to have like these really big top of funnel ideas? And I think where we landed was that we wanted to have the highest impact possible within the organization when we shifted this thinking to retention, paid media, website, connected TV, all these channels starting to work together rather than sort of operating excellently within silos with amazing operators at each of these different touch points, sort of, against their KR&Is, working, with their teams. But really, how do we bring the brand together to speak through one idea, even during an offer period? So really the first time we kicked this off, we'll talk about it a little bit later, is our Mother's Day campaign this year. And we thought, as a brand that has 75 SKUs, there's only so much we can do from an offers perspective. We don't have thousands of products that we can kind of move in and out. We aren't releasing 5 new products a month, right? We have like our really core products, our cutlery, our cookware, our hex mill, salt and pepper grinders. We have some products to work with, but not a ton. And there's only so many ways we can discount products. So how can we create a connection with consumers around the way that we're marketing those sales? Beyond just save up to this percent off. We're doing that, obviously. There are the direct action, direct response call to actions throughout the marketing materials. But with our Mother's Day campaign this year, we talked a little bit about like a simple idea of like, challenging our consumer to do better than flowers, do better than the grocery store flower bouquet that you buy for your mom. Buy something that will last her a lifetime. And that sort of idea, that ethos informed the creative direction, the art direction of all the assets across all channels. So it's a really simple idea for us, campaigns. Sometimes we'll talk about Super Bowl. We obviously had a very, very tippy top of funnel, TVC spot to lead off that campaign. And sometimes it's a web retention, paid media on Meta mostly, campaign that's running across those channels. So it really depends. But we wanted to start with offer periods. Those were the periods that we felt like weren't the brand squishy moments where it's like we're doing this because we want to build brand awareness or other metrics that we have to somehow validate in Tracksuit or other places or Motion to sort of say that this did something for us. We wanted hard hitting performance driven metrics to validate the idea that creating a consistent brand experience across all channels and moving the user through that journey, and having the paid ad lead to the collection page, lead to the conversion experience, and have that all be connected, or the email to the collection page to the conversion experience, all be connected around one idea could pay dividends. And we've done that 6-7 times now since Mother's Day, and that's worked really well for us.
Amazing. And I definitely want to get into the Mother's Day stuff. I know you've got some actual examples for us to see, which is going to be amazing. But when you think of when you first started this shift, what was the internal buy-in for something like this? Like, what do you have to do? What do people who are watching this have to do to convince their leadership that this is the right direction? And how do they answer questions and worry about how many resources this is going to take and how much more time it's going to take? Like, how do you convince them that this is the right direction?
Yeah, I think the biggest question internally was this was a divergence from our previous strategy. I think that, there's a lot of work that go into all of our offer periods. We're creating in the past, especially 2024 and before, many versions, many ad sets going live at the same time to support these sales. We've actually reduced a lot of those things this year and kind of focused a little bit more in terms of creative production. But I think it was more, abandoning the strategy and what works, right? And that can make people nervous. But I think internally there was this feeling of, we want these offer periods to stand out from each other, and we're feeling like they're not. We think creative could be a solve here, but then in terms of what that actually looks like, I think there was a lot of discussion. And when you develop creative direction for a campaign where there's an idea driving it, inherently, hopefully, it's aesthetically going to be different from your top performers and winners from years past that you've been kind of running and updating the tagline on, or the discount offer, switching out a PNG with a different product. And that's going to require a leap of faith on the part of our creative strategists and our paid media team, and ultimately the teams that are accountable for all the metrics that we're measured on, obviously our top line MER, but individual sort of ROAS and efficiency, on an asset by asset basis. But I think we also had to meet the moment, right? We didn't come with a proposal for a campaign that was going to cost us $50,000 to execute. We spent $8,000 on a photo shoot to make this campaign happen. We have a content team that I lead at HexClad with a lot of talented producers and production folks, great vendors that we work with. We have our own studio. We do have a lot of luxuries as a larger brand that not everybody has, but we didn't engage an agency here and do a $100,000 campaign for our sale. We developed all this internally, shot all the assets in a single day, and worked with our channel leads to roll everything out across channels. So I think there's a lot of trust and buy-in that this coordinated creative idea could work. But again, we scoped it in a size that we weren't asking for an outsized budget beyond what we would normally do to support something like this. We were just supporting it in a different way than we have in the past.
I love that you're talking about the scope of it, because I think too, when you hear campaign, that seems very large and scary. And like you have to have this hero 30-second spot that's fully produced in order for it to be a campaign. But that's not necessarily the case, right? You're just kind of elevating your creative so that it has some sort of cohesive red thread throughout everything, and we're not just looking at one meta ad, we're looking at how the meta ad connects to the website, connects to everything else that's going on with the brand, right?
Yeah, and I think like very simply, like we hadn't really done something as a brand that most brands do, but I think like in the sort of like desire to move fast, disrupt things, and just like get stuff done, which I think is like what we have to do, especially this time of year, right? We're all just like trying to survive and like get through all of our tasks. We hadn't like put all of our channels assets up on like one Figma file or like on one whiteboard if we pinning things up. We hadn't really looked at our brand as consumers look at our brand, right? Which is like they're experiencing us like in a very channel agnostic way, where no one is just experiencing us through Meta. I mean, hopefully they're clicking on a CTA and going to our site, right? So they're inherently going to experience like our brand there on at least those two touch points. But ideally, we create an entire ecosystem where they can't get away from HexClad. And so to have some cohesion and continuity between that messaging and how we're going to market, and how we're choosing to present a sales period, offer period. I saw there were some things in the chat. When I say offer period, I'm talking about a promotional sales period here, essentially. Mother's Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, like our, BFCM coming up, obviously. So those are huge times, 8 or 9 times throughout the year. But yeah, I think that was an exercise that again seems really simple and seems like low hanging fruit to just really just even consider visually, like, what are we saying? Who are we during these 2 weeks of the year across channels? And if it's really fragmented and different and there's very little connection, our consumers are going to feel that, even if it's just a subtextual thing. And some of the results that we saw, I think, indicated that it's very powerful to connect those channels together.
Absolutely. And I want to get into some more of the specifics of how you think about those sale periods. Like, walk us through the process. You have this sale or this offer or Black Friday coming up.
Yep.
How do you think about it? Where do you start? And how is that different now that you've campaignified everything versus when you were kind of in a more tactical D2C performance mindset?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we thought of our content previously, we were trying to just do a lot of more editorial style content, brand building, offering value beyond, like in our retention program, beyond just like, here, buy this, here's an offer, here's a new product. And I think that's like a playbook that a lot of brands have been running, to some degree over the past decade or so, where it's like, we have more to say to our consumers than just telling them to buy something. So we want to occupy the space that we are producing product in as tastemakers, thought leaders, and beyond just like manufacturing, a CPG product. So, for us, that definitely, that shift happened this year when we decided we really wanted to be focusing our resources on supporting these offer periods through these campaigns. And again, bringing together some of our editorial chops and acumen, that brand side with the performance side. So I think the first thing we thought about with Mother's Day or any of our campaigns is like, is there a compelling angle that only HexClad can kind of bring to life in our category? So Mother's Day was really easy because we looked at, 2024 performance. There's the cat. Excellent.
There's the cat every time.
Beautiful. Well, as soon as you say performance, so like for us, like there was a real opportunity to zag anyone who, if you're familiar with the HexClad brand, we're Gordon Ramsay, we're like dark, we're not, we're shooting in black, we're shooting in these worlds. You'll see a little bit of later some of the creative. I think we're not sun-dappled countertops in Venice with pastel cookware. There are other brands that do that really, really well. So I think that, our founder, Danny Weiner and CEO, like smartly zagged on the brand identity early on for HexClad, that we wanted to stand out and be different. But that really needs to continue like through all of our touch points. So if we're doing a Mother's Day sale, to suddenly go pastel pinks and tulips doesn't feel like it is in line with our brand DNA. And sure enough, when you look at all of our competitors, they are very much doing one thing, playing from one playbook. So thinking about like, what can HexClad own in this space? And then what's a message that can really tie things together? Mother's Day, Father's Day, even Black Friday, Cyber Monday, I'm very excited about the messaging we're going to have for that. These holidays really mean something. They're gifting holidays, which is really helpful, and people already have an emotional connection to them, even if it's like a difficult one, right? We have to think about our consumers who Mother's Day or Father's Day are tough times for them. But for us, we wanted to lean into our brand ethos of challenging people to be better in the kitchen, and giving them the tools to do so, and wanting them to give a better gift to mom, and something that flowers die, HexClad lasts forever type thing. So like trying to find that visual and sort of emotional connection with, again, something that is just a 2-week period where our products are on sale, right? But can we make it seem like something more than that? So I think that sort of conceptual brainstorming and visual road mapping and kind of mood boarding is the first step. It's like, how are we going to bring what's everyone else doing around this holiday? How are we going to bring this into the world of HexClad that feels like it's an extension of our core brand identity? And how do we want people to feel when they're experiencing it across all parts of the funnel?
I want to pull up that Mother's Day campaign because it is beautiful and
Yes.
it looks totally different from anything else you see that time of year. Like you said, the pink and the tulips and just very cliche visuals. And I want you to tell us, like, how did you uncover an insight like this, and how do you identify these creative concepts that you build into these campaigns? Like, where should someone start if they want to do something like this?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you hire really amazing and talented people, which is, I think, what we've done at HexClad. Our design director, Harry Scortis, our producer, Crystal Bahami, like we have amazing people who have like a real, just a real knack for this, and like really care. They care deeply about their jobs and the brand. And for Mother's Day, I think like, it really started with this idea of like, yeah, Mother's Day is presented as one thing where it's really bright and, kind of tulips, pinks, pastels, like I said. Our brand is darker. Like moms and like parents, like can be sexy and have fun too. And like we can have elevated experiences for them that don't have to infantilize mothers. As like, it doesn't have to involve your kids. It can be a moment for yourself. It can be having a martini at the end of the day. These things are really, really, really important parts of our identities as humans. And I think Mother's Day and Father's Day, they go to tulips and kids, they go to grills and whatever. And like, that's it. We're like just binary people. And so I think we wanted to kind of expand beyond that. And this is a look at what we did last year for Mother's Day in 2024, and this is taken from like a deck that I, presented to our C-suite after this campaign rolled out. There's nothing proprietary in here. All this stuff was available. You can see it. You can go on Mild. You can go on Ad Library. You can see all this stuff. You can go on the Wayback Machine and see our website. So anybody can pull this together. But it kind of just shows where we were last year, which is like, if you look at our paid stack, those are the top 6 performing ads from 2024 during this sale period. There's urgency messaging. There's Gordon. There's PNG bundle shots of our pans. Really, these were top performing ads that we had run for, 6 months to a year in many cases, that we were just reversioning. It's like Mother's Day sale. There's a free griddle that was like a gift with purchase that wasn't happening before. But that's really the only difference. And if you're a consumer like coming across many, many ads every single day on Meta, you might not even notice that there's any urgency here, there's any difference, because these ads are very, very similar. Our retention design was like, I think, beautiful. The colors were great. We had a designer dedicated to that on point. We had offboarded our agency that was running retention by this time in 2024. We have a really talented designer, Julia Juarez, that does a lot of our email designs. And then our website was like a very standard adaptation of like what our normal evergreen site is. So I think it's just important to show where we were at. These, HexClad is seen as like a darling in the DCC space that is known for its performance, and these things performs. But I think when you get to a certain point, you have to look back at the ghost you're trying to beat from last year, and really think critically about like, well, how can we do better? How can we bring these channels together? And it doesn't take more work. It just takes working differently, right? So I think this is really how it started. Like this was like the first mood board imagery. And I think, for us, like the crushed velvets, the reds, or the dark greens, like was something we really wanted, and we didn't want these like bright perky flowers. We didn't want dead flowers, but we wanted like a little bit more of a goth vibe. And this was like the
Moody.
very first like, yeah, moody. Because again, like that is our brand. And I think for us to zag super hard in the other direction is really disorienting for consumers and not like in line with, the brand that I think a lot of people at HexClad before I got there worked really hard to build. This sketch was cool. This was our design director, Harry, who I mentioned, who put this together. And again, this idea of like challenging our consumers of doing better than flowers and really just showing how we wanted that composition to end up looking like, which is very much what ended up happening at the end of the day. But like it started with this. It started with pulling a few pieces of swipe and a few sketches, which is no different than how art directors and copywriters and all the amazing creative folks who make these campaigns work, whether you're prompting one of the tools that they were talking about in a previous session or like briefing a photo shoot to create it. It starts with this, right? It starts with some sort of creative idea and what you're going for. So this was really the starting point for us. And this was the end point, and so I think, so this is 2025, this is 2024. For us, like wanting to have a bird's eye view of our brand and how we showed up again, the simple act of like putting every single asset that we released throughout 2025 Mother's Day on a single frame and seeing the continuity. You see our emails on the left-hand side for our sets, our individual products, our knives, our pepper mills. This is the same playbook. We didn't change our email retention playbook. We sent out 7 emails during the course of this sale, very similar call to actions, very similar product representation. We didn't say, let's remove offer language. There's a badge there that says up to 49% off. We didn't say, let's remove product shopping bundles and PNGs. Let's just drive people to an elegant collection page and have a bunch of beautiful photos. We're doing the same thing. We're just organizing the information a little bit differently and putting a different creative wrapper around it. You'll see our paid media stack, down on the bottom right-hand corner, our web stack on the top right, and then our organic social down, bottom center. And so just this idea of like, I think starting with like, how does our brand show up? Certainly just like evergreen all the time, but especially during really important high intent, high in conversion moments throughout the year. And like, put yourself in the consumer's, shoes and just see like, does this make sense together? How is one experiencing our brand? And this is a really monochromatic way of showing up. We're running evergreen creative during this time, but we wanted anything associated with this moment and this messaging to feel of a piece. So our brand is more flexible than this, like even during this time period. But these touch points that we're touching and leading up to this campaign, we wanted it to feel a certain way. And I think we were successful at doing that. So I have another slide here.
There's a ton of love in the chat for this Mother's Day campaign. It really is beautiful. The copy is great.
Figma, that we're looking at right now, by the way.
It's interesting seeing, like you said, the bird's eye view, because when you look at 2024, all you see is the sale. You see those numbers, you see how much you're going to save. But then when you look at this year's, you're seeing a message, you're seeing an insight about what would be a better gift for mom, and it kind of elevates the product. You're not seeing it as just a sale and a deal to get. You're seeing it as this investment and this better gift for mom. So it helps the customer view the product in a different light too, which I think is really great.
100%. And I think like the thing here, I'm seeing like some questions in the chat, for me, like, again, this isn't the only way our brand is showing up even during this time, right? Like I said, so, we have everything related to this campaign, which we launched 25 assets this year during our Mother's Day campaign. I believe in 2024, we launched 75 assets. So like a huge decrease. We also cut spend significantly and saw a very, very low drop in spend or in revenue attributable to Meta. I'm not going to like share exact figures, but they weren't equal, which is what you want, right? And we're running a ton of other assets during this time, right? So we're running our evergreen creative. Like it's not like we shut everything off and we only put out these 25 assets during this time. But like again, I think there is power when you're driving people to a cohesive experience. Hopefully, people are receiving our emails, they're being served our ads, and then they're visiting our website. And whether they're hitting the homepage or they're being directly driven to a product page or a collection page, there's a continuity in this experience and this messaging. They've seen it before. We don't have to retrain them. What is this? Like, what am I being sold? What is the message? What is the offer? We can hit them over and over again with like the same thematics, the same wrapper. and I think they're inclined to spend more time. On our collection page, for example, this is the collection page from 2024 here on the right, on the left side of the right. We made a lot of formatting changes to that page to optimize it as well. But we saw, people go from spending an average of 1.5 minutes on that collection page to, in 2025, spending 3.5 minutes on a collection page. Add to cart increased by 56%. Conversion was up 23% on the page. Like, those are just a few stats.
Wow.
We're doing a lot of things as a brand that are different, right? We had a Super Bowl ad this year we're going to talk about. There's a lot of top of funnel spend happening on TV and other places. So there are other things happening. But again, we believe, and we've seen these results mirrored in various sales throughout the year, adopting this kind of tactic, which again, we did not invent. You talk to anyone who works at a legacy brand, they might approach it differently. They probably don't spin this concept up in less than a month like we did. But this is an old playbook, but we've seen again and again that it's paid dividends for us in all those metrics that I mentioned. So everything has to be quantifiable. HexClad is not a place where it's like we're doing brand things for brand's sake. We want to invest in our brand, but invest smartly in our brand and have clear objectives on what we're trying to do from a performance standpoint. And if we have an amazing creative idea, we want to at least try to back into how can we show directly attributable revenue or other hard metrics that prove out that this is something we don't just feel like we should be doing, but it's something we need to be doing. And then we execute it as a brand in the best way possible.
So it sounds like the metrics you're using are still very much performance marketing metrics, but you're putting it
in this here tool motion that we're here to talk about today. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I live in motion. Our team does. We work hand in hand with Connor and our growth team, our amazing creative strategists, Alyssa and Paige. I think like this is not devoid from that. Like, we are two halves of a marketing team, growth and brand, working together. We produce all of our creative internally at HexClad. We do not use outside agencies. Of course, we use UGC creators to create more native content for us. But our creative strategists are often, certainly in pre-production, helping us create the briefs, on set at times, depending on what's happening. So this isn't like, brand does a campaign photo shoot and shoves it down growth's throat and asks them to make the numbers work, make the math. This is like, we're very clear on what our efficiency goals need to be. And we'll talk later about just like how we work with creative strategists and like the iteration process. But we're working with them to like understand what made this ad perform fundamentally from your perspective, and how can we create a aesthetic wrapper around it to make it fit within this campaign context without losing the direct response value that was there, that made the ad work, quote unquote, in the first place. But can we make it work better?
Right. And do you apply any awareness sort of metrics to things like this? Like, when you think of a traditional sort of brand campaign, most of it is driven by awareness. So do you apply any of that thinking on top of the other performance metrics that you're tracking with something like this?
On bigger campaigns, yes, like Super Bowl, certainly. And even our partnership with Yuki Tsunoda, the F1 driver, there's a little bit more of that happening, especially in some of our nascent markets, like Japan, where he's from, where this was like a huge deal for them. But honestly, from a 2-week period that's mostly being, distributed across our owned and paid media channels, like, we're not expecting a huge lift in brand awareness here. This is like, can we create a better mousetrap for our existing, customers who are in our funnel, and this is a time for them to convert. And how can we catch their attention in a way that will be distinct from either the last offer period where they didn't convert, or the evergreen marketing that's been present, that they've been served while we're filling the funnel, getting ready for the next offer period. So like less of a brand awareness consideration, something we're tracking sort of period over period, certainly, but we don't expect these campaigns to move the needle in that way, which honestly, for this audience, I think like when you get to that point where it's like, all right, like, how can we raise our brand visibility or brand awareness score by 2 points in the next quarter? That's not really how we're thinking about these campaigns at this point. And again, like, we care about that for these really big moments, but most of what we do is a direct-to-consumer brand that isn't omni-channel. We are just in direct-to-consumer and Costco, but we're not in retail. We don't do wholesale. These metrics and those sort of offer periods are king for us. And so we need all of our creative and all of our brand activities to be in service of that, because this is long-term performance thinking with short-term results, but we are building brand while doing this, and we will see that brand awareness and that relationship with the consumer, better increase over time. But we don't expect it to change in a 2-week time period with mostly conversion-focused messaging.
I love the thought of the long-term brand building while you're doing these sort of performance
the work we have to do.
campaigns.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
right. Like,
that's a great way to look at it.
It's a hard conversation to have, in companies like ours and say, but like in 2 years, like this is going to pay off. But it's not going to, you're not going to see any returns until then. It's like, well, that is not going to go well. I'm going to get laughed out of our conference room. So I would never bring that sort of proposal. I think that, we take bets that, maybe we don't think we're ready for at the time. Like when we signed up for a Super Bowl commercial in 2023 for 2024, I'm sorry, in 2024 for 2025, I wasn't entirely sure we were ready yet. Our CEO signed up for it. He was right. We were ready. It was the exact right moment. But then we saw short-term results from that as well. So sometimes we'll take a leap of faith, and that's a big one. But in this case, you have to have the now and the down the line. So everything everything you're building as a brand at this stage has to be leading towards what you want your eventual outcomes to be years down the line. And we need micro steps that make sense to get to the macro shift that we want to make as a brand. But the micro steps have to pay dividends. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Absolutely. You have another sale example for us, right? How you campaignified it.
I just wanted to show that, like, I won't go as deep on this, but just show how this can show up really differently. Every year we've run a Labor Day sale. Most D2C brands do. It's another period that, most people are on sale. We don't want to miss out on being on sale, of course. So like this is another, after a summer full of sales, 4th of July, Father's Day, Mother's Day starts in May. This was our last offer period of the summer. And then this one, we just felt Labor Day didn't have a distinct identity. Like that was especially different from 4th of July, where we went with a bit more of an Americana theme. And so we just challenged ourselves to think about what else is happening at this time of year. And it's really like the start of the end of summer, and I think people go back to their routine, they go back to school, and like those things are like kind of sad. They can be energizing going back to school. That could be like a fun feeling, like get back to your work, get back to your routine. But instead, I think we wanted to think about like, how do we bottle up that like end of summer feeling and that light, like if you're lucky enough to live, by the water or in other places where the light does amazing things at this time of year, how can that amber glow, that golden hour, like, kind of be bottled up? And again, it's dark, it's moody, there's shadows. Gordon's still there holding a frickin' pan, don't worry. We've got the 12-piece set plus free gift, but these are just a few examples of some of the key art that we ran like during this time period. And I'll talk more later about how we organize all this stuff and like what goes to our designers and everything. But just to show you that, like, I think there's a connection between this and Mother's Day, but they're pretty different. But it's the same messaging, and it's a different concept and idea executed, aesthetically differently. But the same thinking went into this that went into Mother's Day, and we're doing this every single offer period. This even is happening right now. If you go to HexClad, you'll see our sweepstakes. We don't need to talk about sweepstakes. Everyone is doing them now. I think it's a fun opportunity to have a brand moment during what is essentially like a gamification of shopping in between offer periods, right? Here, golden ticket to Paris. We had a lot of fun printing golden tickets for this $170,000 trip to Paris that we're providing to one of our sweepstakes winners. And again, how can we, lots of brands do sweepstakes. Liquid Death, Ridge obviously does an amazing job on sweepstakes. Caraway launched one this year. How do we make this into another brand moment with one of our, most important brand assets, Gordon Ramsay, and show some real authority in the space? We're putting together a once in a lifetime culinary trip for one of our consumers. And again, this is what the world looks like. I can't zoom in, I don't think, but we even had like custom wallpaper made by our art director who wanted to like put HexClad products in the wallpaper that's on the background there. None of this stuff like broke the bank, but we have like a really scrappy team who wants to do cool things and get stuff done. So this just shows you like 3 different approaches to this campaignification of offer periods, kind of showing up in pretty different ways within a 6-month period of each other.
There's a lot of, again, love in the chat for everything you guys are doing creatively, but I just have to highlight Sophie's idea for Gordon Hour instead of Golden Hour. with
So
those
good.
beautiful,
Damn it. Okay, we'll do it
beautiful
next year.
ads.
That's great. Yeah. I love that. That's
Sophie, you're
great.
hired. Yeah, this is great to see. And I also love that you continue to highlight the point that doing this kind of stuff doesn't have to break the bank, especially knowing that HexClad is
Our
a
CEO
higher
might be
price.
watching, so I just want to make sure that, like, it's like we know it's okay. It's all good.
Yeah, it's relative, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think it's just interesting to hear that from a brand like HexClad that does have a higher price tag. It is a higher consideration sort of product. So I want to talk about marketing that kind of a product and how that can differ for other, sort of impulse purchase sort of products, which you see a lot of in more tactical D2C things. And I think this is where you guys have a really great opportunity to do some of that higher funnel marketing, which we saw in your Super Bowl spot and the F1 thing that we'll talk about.
Yep.
So walk us through your strategy for building the multiple touch points around these campaigns, knowing that you have this longer consideration period for your product.
Yeah, I mean, we're not an inexpensive product. I think for most people, if they purchase a 12-piece set, which is $700, it's going to be one of the top 20, 10 most expensive purchases that they make in a year. It's not an impulse buy. TikTok Shop is hard for us. We have an amazing marketplaces team that is really is having success on that platform with individual products. But like most people are buying a set. They're moving into a new home, their first home. They're at major life moments. They're tired of their old nonstick cookware that's failed them, that had a 1-year warranty that they need to throw in the trash. They want something better, and so it's a major investment. In dollars, but also in resources. We have a lot of competitors who make amazing products and some who make not amazing products, but they're all out there, and there's a lot to dig into about what's right for you as a cook. And I think it is closer to buying, we're a piece of technology, right? We have a unique technology. For anyone who doesn't know, our pans, we say, combine the durability of cast iron, the searing power of stainless steel, and the nonstick, easy cleanup of traditional nonstick pans. And so like we have to educate consumers on what that is, what the value proposition is. It's not just another carbon steel pan, another stainless steel pan, another cast iron pan that is made by somebody else or is a little bit different and has a design tweak or whatever. It's a fundamentally new offering that has been in market for 10 years now, but we're still reaching people who are hearing about us for the first time. And so between the price and sort of like our real, like, I think differentiation in the market, we see people take 6 to 9 months to make a decision about buying one of our products. And so I think there's like an incredible responsibility to make sure that we are, along with our creative strategy team, making creative content that speaks to like all the various angles that those people are considering throughout time. Certainly bringing each of those 3 value propositions to life and how they kind of connect with you in a real way, but also hitting people, across all different channels and having diversified creative. Because if you're in the funnel for 6 to 9 months, you're seeing a lot of our meta ads. You're going to be really annoyed if you're seeing the same ad over and over and over again. So I think that's another reason to have this kind of shift in campaign to campaign thinking, so we can have different ways to hopefully have people emotionally connect with our brand, and like different creative will resonate with different folks. Creative is the new targeting, right? 3 years ago now, it's still the case, right? And so like we want to take enough swings at that across enough different channels and enough different permutations, whether it be paid media, out of home, connected TV, that we can make some connection or multiple connections with people during that time period. But yeah, when people are in a market like that, I think premium quality of your content also really, really matters. I think if all you have is natively shot creative and like your site doesn't change and everything looks the same, your emails like look like they're like pulled directly out of Klaviyo templates, like people aren't going to drop $700 with you. It's just really not going to happen. And I think there's that core group of food consumers that are really excited about the technological innovation and understand it immediately. And they just want it. They want the newest. They want to understand like what's best in the kitchen and buy that. And those become like our best LTV customers who will buy anything we make because they know it's coming from that sense of innovation. And then everybody else, they need to be convinced. They need to like understand why this is better than all the other ads that are being served by every other company. So I think I think they need to be convinced, and they also need to be convinced that the product and the brand is worth parting with $700 of their money for. And it really doesn't matter if they're parting with $100 or $700, but 700 is, it turns out, 7 times more than $100. And so I think there's just like that much more, that much higher bar to what people expect from a brand like that we say we're producing premium cookware. The way we market it needs to feel like it's in line with what we're saying our product is and what our brand is.
Absolutely. If you look like you cheaped out on your ads, they're not really going to trust the product either. And I think that longer consideration period too is even more of a reason to do something bigger and have those higher level campaigns, because a sale or a very traditional performance kind of ad is not going to stick with people for 6 to 9 months. They're not going to remember you by the time they're ready to buy something. So there's tons of reason to do that. And I want to talk about one of your highest visibility touch points, which was the Super Bowl. And I know you've got that spot queued up for us that I would love to watch. It was one of my favorite Super Bowl spots this year, especially the way you guys teased out the idea. So I would love to talk through some of that, and then we can watch the video.
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Melissa.
We've made contact with a new alien species, and apparently they're foodies.
Oh, foodies. The worst.
Mr. Ramsey, we'll need you to cook for them. You'll have access to everything the Area 51 test kitchen has to offer, including top secret alien cooking technology.
Wait, that's just a HexClad pan. I've got these at home.
Unfortunately, it was leaked 8 years ago. The pan was developed using material from an alien spacecraft.
What?
Extremely durable, but low friction. Created to deal with a thick egg-like atmosphere.
You're saying the pan I used to fry my bacon is made out of flying saucers?
We don't have time for a science lesson, Mr. Ramsey. The alien ambassador's already here.
Whoa.
Not her. Him.
Hey, what's up, dude?
You're an alien?
All famous people are aliens.
I'm not.
I meant like really famous people.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah. Huh?
I've seen that so many times.
I love it.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously, very different than a lot of things we're talking about. The budget level's crazy. Not everyone can afford to do a Super Bowl commercial. We did work with an agency on this. There's a ton of moving pieces. But again, I think it came back to like, what are we trying to do besides make 140 million people aware of HexClad? We want the connection between our technological innovation and the consumers to be made, right? And so like, what better way than how to explain why the product is so technologically advanced than like it must have come from aliens. And so I think it was a fun creative execution, and I'm really proud of it. Pete was amazing to work with, all of those things. But back to like, why the fuck we're doing this question is like, we need people to understand that our product is different. We're not the same. And like, this was a way to bring that to life. But it started with the like, what are we trying to do here besides, spend $6 million and reach a ton of people in one go in a way that our brand feels ready for. And I'm really proud that we're able to like have something that like our product is really at the center of, and our differentiation is at the center of, versus a logo that pops up at the end after like a very funny or very emotionally tugging at the heartstrings ad. And you're like, oh, HexClad, I don't know what that is. Maybe I'll go check it out. So we don't have the brand equity to do that yet. But that was really a lot of the thinking behind this.
Yeah, I like to hear the thought behind the concept, because we'll see that in the F1 partnership as well, where you're connecting some sort of truth about your product to the person you're partnering with, or the spot that you're creating. And it's a really unique connection there. And I think that's something that people can take away to try to find some way to campaignify their products. So talk us through like the high performance cookware sort of connection that you're putting into the Super Bowl spot and your Yuki Tsunoda partnership as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I just see a bunch of questions about like tracking performance from Super Bowl, and I just can I speak on that just really quickly, because I think that's like a big question. It's like, should we do Super Bowl ads anymore? I think this is a great question. We obviously saw a huge influx of people, in the 2 hours after the spot aired. It was in the third quarter of the Super Bowl this year. We saw like a how many figures spike, thousands of percent spike in users day over day, which you would expect, right? I think what we didn't quite expect was like in looking at our Northbeam modeling, and I won't give specific figures, but 8-figure incremental revenue increase in the 3 months following the Super Bowl that is sort of unaccounted for. And I think the ad half-life, like this metric that Northbeam has, which is another tool that everyone here uses, I'm sure, like that is an important part of our tech stack, including motion. Kind of really shows the efficacy of an ad and how long that really lasts for. The Super Bowl is like has the longest ad half-life of any unit out there. And, it's a huge, there's the earned media pickup, there's the social piece beforehand, which I do want to talk about. I know we're like running out of time here. So I'm aware of that. But we saw enough through that to really feel like we got back our investment and many more dollars. So like, again, being in a position to make the investment in both the ad time and the creative is not a position every brand is in. We are fortunate enough to have been in that moment. And then I think we were very pleased that we were able to capitalize it in a quantifiable way that it wasn't us all just like patting on the back and being like, the New York Times said we had the 3rd best Super Bowl ad this year. That's how I humble brag in that one moment. That's great, right? We all like that makes us feel great as creatives. Our agency, Rosewood Creative in LA that we worked with, amazing people. Like they felt great about that and all the press. But they felt a lot greater about like the financial results we saw, from the spot. And that's ultimately what we care about. So, there was a performance angle even to this at the top of funnel. So.
So if there's any doubt that Super Bowl still works, that should answer the question.
Linear and CTV, we're still running it. It will run through November 14th. Like it had, and we had a couple more DR extensions of this world that we created that were about a bit more product benefit features set in the world of this with Gordon and Pete. So like we had like 6 commercial deliverables from this with the 60-second Super Bowl spot as kind of the hero. So, but we had a metal utensil specific spot, for example, between Pete and Gordon, kind of sparring back and forth. So there were a lot of different creative assets that we didn't just shove this Super Bowl spot down every single funnel. We had things that made sense on different channels.
Right. You're not just repurposing that video a million different places. You're pulling out bits and pieces of it for other touch points. That's great. So let's talk about your other example with the F1 driver partnership and how you connected this idea to the product. Like, how did you make sense of why to do this?
Totally. Let's watch. That one's only 30 seconds. Great.
The purpose of engineering is to unlock performance. This is a HexClad pan with hybrid technology that perfectly balances durability, searing power, and non-stick cooking performance. Its purpose is to help F1 driver Yuki Tsunoda pursue his dream, cooking a steak for me. Great sear.
Thanks for letting me borrow your pan.
Thanks for letting me borrow your car.
Wait, what?
It's Yuki.
I love that you put Gordon in there too.
Had to put Gordon in there. I'll speak quickly on this, as I know we had a couple other things to show about working with creative strategists, see if we can get it all done. On this one, we've been circling a partnership with F1 for a long time and very interested in doing that. We still may do that in the future. Gordon has a partnership with F1. He has a activation at every single race. He is at many of the races throughout the year. A huge property internationally that has grown significantly, obviously, since Drive to Survive came out on Netflix, 7 or 8 years ago in the US now. There's Grand Prix in Austin and Vegas. Vegas is a big market for us, a big market for Gordon. Yuki and Gordon developed a friendship very organically, on and off the track. We got put in contact. Yuki, we found out, wants to be a chef and open a restaurant after he's done with F1. And so, the way to sort of create an association between what F1 represents and by extension Yuki represents, which is high performance engineering, right? These are millions of dollars go into the research and development of these cars, and they cost a couple $1 million to make. Amazing teams. If you saw F1, it goes into them. Our products, while not requiring the same investment in engineering, painstakingly engineered over the course of a decade. And there's real technological innovation in both. And so for us to have a spot that's set in this sort of surreal black world, has the high intensity of what it feels like, hopefully, to maybe be in a car, in an F1 car, what it's like to like have the high performance from our cookware. We felt like we wanted to go serious, and then we wanted kind of a fun button between the two of them. We didn't know what Yuki was going to be like as an actor, so we kept his lines minimal, but he was great.
He did great.
And yeah, and again here, like this spot is running across connected TV globally for us. So it's our first spot we've ever run in Japan. We have a Japanese language version of this spot. He's massive there. We saw massive increase in traffic to our Japanese spot after this spot went live in Japan, and he had a social campaign that he rolled out there to the Japanese market, but also in the UK and EU, which are huge markets for us as well, and of course in the United States. So again, like with both of these, I think it starts with like, all right, like we really want to lean into our performance and our technology, whether it's coming from aliens or it's like matching the performance of an F1 car and an F1 driver. How can we really hit people over the head with those ideas? And I think that the visual world, difference here is like this was produced in-house. The Rosewood spot was, the Super Bowl spot was produced with an agency. Vastly different budget levels, but still like a premium quality and feel. This wasn't a $30,000 ad. It was a little bit more expensive than that, but a lot less than what you might expect. And yeah, working smartly with a real plan about what we're trying to get out of the assets. So that was informing both of them.
Yeah, I just want to highlight that part you said about connecting the high performance part, because I think that's something people can pull out of this, whether they have this kind of budget or not, because you can find some sort of attribute of your product and connect it to a creator or someone else that you can work with, or some sort of campaign idea. Like, Dara highlighted the importance of partnership ads. Find some sort of attribute with your product and connect it to a creator to work with, regardless of your budget. So let's talk about your some of your tips for creative strategists and how they can start to think in this more campaign mindset in their day-to-day work.
Yep. This was just a little bit of a key art for Yuki, but let me get over to those other assets. So two things I just want to hit on here. Like one is like our design stack, which our creative strategists are a part of. But let me say this real fast. How do all these campaigns sort of come together? It really starts with this. This is a design toolkit that we create that our designer, our design director, Harry, who I mentioned, puts together, and then cascades to all the channel specific designers. So logo lockups, ideas for emails, end cards for UGC paid ads, hex codes, backgrounds, badges, offer things. Like these are the nuts and bolts of like what powers the rest of the creative and ensures that there's real flexibility for designers to work with, but there's continuity between the channels. Again, we didn't invent this. Like every campaign, every brand that's ever launched has a brand toolkit or a campaign design toolkit. This is just something we've rolled out this year. And then I just wanted to like show this, which is like kind of where we started and where we ended. So on the left is like one of our top performing Mother's Day ads from 2024 that we wanted to make sure we adapted into this style. This actually shows the creative process with our designer, like all the versions that were created till we got to the one on the right, which is the one that went live. And then on the bottom, same thing with a Super Bowl ad from earlier this year to a campaign ad. So this is really like collaborating with the creative strategy team to determine like what are the non-negotiable elements of this format that make it work. Help us understand as designers and creatives why we can't change X, Y, or Z about this ad, and let us work with you. I think a lot of the time we found that like creative strategists are amazing, right? They have to be in the data, they have to be creative, they have to be executionary, right? And many times they're briefing in creatives. We wanted to like really have them focus in on these campaigns on the data and the science behind what's making these ads perform in their mind, and let us meet you with design solutions instead of you as a creative strategist prescribing solutions to a designer. And I think that interplay between our departments has really led to more on-brand creative. I hate that phrase, but like creative that can fit into these campaigns, but not abandon the direct response principles that will have us meet our efficiency metrics and return on ad spend that we're really looking for, because no one wants ads that don't perform for these sales.
Mhm.
Not me. So I think that really is the role, and that was the challenge of like, how do we understand where you're coming from and what you see when you see this ad? Like, Neo in the Matrix, like when you're
Mhm.
looking at the ad sets, what can't we let go of? And don't teach us how to be creative strategists and do your job, but like inform the process and the nuts and bolts of like what's working here. And so we can not fight against what you want, but we can build on top of it.
I love that. Just in our last minute, if you could, hopefully you got some sort of future predicting technology at Area 51 when you were there for your Super Bowl ad, but can you give us something to look forward to in the next year or two? What should creative strategists be experimenting with and playing with?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole like chat about AI before this, obviously, that I'm sure was like incredibly interesting. I think like how these tools like work into our creative workflows and then our process workflows is absolutely massive. Of course, I think both of these spots I showed like probably would be produced a little bit differently if they were done today than they were 6 months ago, and it would be a little bit more efficient and a little bit cheaper to make those spots. So that's exciting. But I think that this convergence of branded performance is really going to continue being something important, especially as like I think the barrier to entry for content creation like is already very low with everyone having a camera in their pocket. But if you have a keyboard and enough credits on Runway, it's got even lower, right? And so I think that creative that means something and like connects to an emotional idea that people can resonate with. That ultimately is going to be what like moves ads forward. And so like really honing in on that and making sure that that's at the center of your campaigns or anything you're doing creatively. I think the challenge, is there. The slop era like is upon us, and that's going to absolutely extend to AI, UGC, avatars, and like people just questioning what's real. They already do. Is this person being paid to say this? Most certainly, yes. Is this person being prompted to say this? Literally? Increasingly, yes. So like ads that mean something and connect to an emotion we feel, I think like it's going to stop being optional or like a nice to have. It's going to be something we have to do to cut through the noise that we're going to see over the next year. So
Amazing advice. Thank you, Matt, so much for being so candid and showing us the behind the scenes of the work. It was really cool seeing the whole process. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley, for leading this. And thanks to the Motion team for setting up an awesome environment for us. This was really easy and smooth. And thanks for everyone in the comments.
It's time to ship more winning creative with Motion's creative analytics platform that helps you scale winners into unicorns and helps you figure out where your ads might need just a little more help. Join over 2,100 teams shipping winning ads with Motion like Fiori, True Classic, HexClad, and more. Get a free VIP tour today, and you can see how Motion can help your creative strategists and your media buyers speak the same language.